I think it's a good exercise to do, if nothing else, is looking at what you do on a daily basis and say, is this worth my annual salary to be able to do this? Or if I hired this off and spent 50 grand to hire this off and I never had to do this again, and this person did this, is it worth it? And if it is, it's probably worth it.
Hey, it's Brad here. And before we get into the show, I want to tell you about today's sponsor, Next Insurance. You know, a lot of us contractors spend so much time keeping the jobs moving that we push off the boring stuff to the back burner, and insurance is usually at the top of that list until the day you really wish you had it. A customer slips on a job site, a tool breaks right in the middle of critical work, a supplier screws up again and leaves you holding the bill. You can lose thousands overnight. And most folks only realize they need insurance when something's already gone sideways. That's why I really like what Next Insurance is doing. They've made business insurance ridiculously simple. You just answer a few questions online, and Next tells you exactly what coverage your business needs, and you're insured in minutes. No sitting on hold, no paperwork, no call us back later nonsense. Next is built for builders, contractors, tradespeople, or anyone running their own shop. And here's the kicker. Their policies start as low as $29 a month, and you get your certificate of insurance instantly, which means you never have to delay a job because you're waiting on insurance. Protect what you've built and keep your business moving with confidence. Get covered in minutes at nextinsurance.com/hammer. Now let's get back to the show. Hey, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Brad, and I have another special guest with me today, Nicolas Breedlove with playgroundequipment.com. Nicolas, welcome to the show.
Hey, I appreciate it, man. I'm really psyched to be here, man.
Awesome. Just real quick, give us just kind of a brief overview, what you do, what your business does, and just kind of intro yourself.
Absolutely. We are in the commercial playground equipment business. We manufacture, we supply, we design, we inspect, we install commercial playgrounds all over the U.S. We have 3 different trade names that we traditionally go off of. We have playgroundequipment.com, and through that, we have a lot of distributor relationships, and we sell to probably around 230 to 240 right now small businesses across the United States, and they purchase and resell our playground equipment under that playgroundequipment.com brand name. And they also install a lot of that equipment. We started the business with a smaller direct to market, which is AAA State of Play. So that also sells our playground equipment. And then the newer company, which is more of a software business. It's still in production, release date sometime in the next month, and that's playgrounds.com.
Okay, awesome. So you got your handful with a few different things then.
Yeah.
Awesome. So did you say you do like maintenance? So if you install a playground in some other state and then there's a problem with it, do you hire like local subs to come out and fix it, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, in this business, it's, the average ticket price for us is probably around $8,000, but it's interesting, I'd say a lot of that is well into the 20s, and people are buying a nice used car price product, right? It's a high end price there. And a lot of people look at it as a one and done situation, gets them in a lot of trouble. So they buy it. They think, okay, it's built for the outdoors, and it is, but you put 100 kids on it every day for a year. And this stuff's going to happen no matter what, no matter how well it's maintained. I mean, your car is designed for a lot of things too. You got to take it in once a month, maybe more, depending. But, so yeah, I mean, as far as contracting out, we've got people, we've got a network. When I first started, I was doing a lot of the installations myself. I would have a computer in one arm, and I would have an auger in the other, and I would try and figure out SEO work in the morning. And then, by the time we were ready to dig holes, I'd be out there plumbing posts and figuring out how to put this stuff together. But fortunately, a kid with no construction background can figure it out. But we've got a good network of people, but we're always looking for more guys and girls to help us install this stuff out there.
Yeah, I mean, if the people are listening looking for opportunities, that will definitely put your information in the show notes. They can reach out. The reason I was asking you though about the maintenance is because way back in the day, I used to do some handyman stuff.
and I had to go fix a playground equipment one time at a YMCA.
Oh, yeah?
It may have been your company subbing it out. I don't know. I don't remember who it was.
I hope we paid you. But no, I'm kidding. We always pay our bills. Yeah, I mean, we tend to not do so much of that sub out just because for us, we like to make sure that our people that we use, if they're not in house, that they're well trained on our equipment. Otherwise, it's just one of those things where we do want our installations or our job callbacks to be a one and done. We don't want to have to keep going back. It's not profitable for anybody to keep going, no doubt, unless it's a new contract for, upgrade or something, vandalism unfortunately happened or something like that. But, there are cases where we've had to reach out to contractors and, do those worst case scenarios. It's a lot easier when it's just surfacing or timbers or landscape and effects, drainage, stuff like that. Those are problems that are a lot easier to outsource. Commercial playground, I'm not going to pretend it's like super simple, but it is not the most difficult thing out there. It is a lot of nuts and bolts and specialty hardware that you can find at most Lowe's and Home Depots of the world.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't remember what it was. It may have been a site survey for some. I honestly have no idea. I just remember it was for a YMCA playground.
That's cool.
They called us and said, hey, can you go out there and do it? And I don't remember what it was. That was like probably 7, 8, 10 years ago. Who knows?
Hey, never know.
But I've installed plenty of wooden play sets in my lifetime. And the ones at Sam's that they had are the worst ones out there.
They are not great.
There's like 2,000 different bolts and screws, and there's like 2.5, 2-inch, 2 3/4. It's like 18 different sizes of one type of screw. And you put the wrong lengths in, and then you need it 15 steps later. Man, that's a terror.
Those are a nightmare. I hope I never have to put any of those together again. But a lot of those playgrounds are made in the same factory, the wooden ones, whether they're from Sam's or Costco or your local guy selling wooden nowadays. Even some of the big brands started making it out there in Taiwan, China. And, once they started doing that, the Chinese fir is what they use a lot for that lumber. And it's so thin. It feels like you could lay fingerprints on it. Yeah. Like,
super soft. Super soft.
Yeah, it definitely feels too soft for a playground.
All right. Good stuff. Well, the nostalgia lane there for a minute, bringing back some memories. How did you get into playgrounds? How did you even find yourself there?
Oh, man. I went to school for horticulture out in Colorado, and I thought I'd get into a couple of my family have a nursery here in Indianapolis, and I thought maybe I'd get into that business. And I started going to school, and I was like, I didn't want to do this. But, my dad was selling shirts, so he's in the apparel business. They were, working for Block and Izod and Van Heusen and all those. Now they're more like golf adjacent brands, but back then they were selling to farm stores and farm and fleets of the world. They did a lot of business with those, and a lot of those big stores just started buying direct from those factories. And somehow or another, I don't know why, but a lot of those guys started selling playground equipment. One did, and then it was like a domino effect. And there was all these really, really good salesmen. They were really good talking to people. They were great door to door. They were great just cold calling. They do anything. And it's kind of dead to a point nowadays to a lot of people. That's why if you have those real inherent sales skills, man, you can really take off in a lot of industries still. So one guy went in there, and my dad was like interested, so he dipped his toes a little bit into it. And then I had come back out of college, and I was like, all right, maybe I'll try this. And it was built for something completely different. It was a weird model. It was a lot of selling over the phone. It taught me a lot of skills early on that I didn't want to learn. And it was just one more thing I didn't want to do. But I knew there was a big opportunity because it was around 2007, 2008. Or no, heck, we've been in business for 20 years now. So it would have been around the recession. So it was 2006. And there was only one other playground company selling online, and they were out of Indiana too. And I was like, all right, so let's do this. I knew I didn't want to sell it how everybody else was doing it. I knew online was a possibility. We got in there. I built a website myself, and the other company went out of business. They bought too many houses, too many boats, and they left everybody with a lot of debt. And that just became in my immediate escalation. Phone calls tripled overnight. And, we were able to double and triple revenue for a lot of years up until, the point I think around 28, 29 million, in revenue a year. And we might have hit a little bit of a plateau for a minute, but there were some other adjacent factors in there. Like, I was growing too much for my own. I wasn't growing as a leader the way I needed to back then to keep up with the scale we were building. So it got me in a lot of trouble at times. As those business stories go.
So when you started out though, did you just do local, like within, an hour, or was you selling stuff all over the US?
So the way it used to be when we first started was we would drive around a truck, bought an F250. We had a 53-foot trailer. It looks like a carnival's coming to town. And if you're ever in Falkville, Alabama, it's right across the border, down there near that, there's on 65 South, there's a rest stop, and it's where they built that spaceship, one of the first spaceships that went out in orbit. That's kind of what put them on the map. Anyways, there's a bunch of playground companies right there in that town, and they all do this stuff where they go a lot of high credit areas, and they will sell playground equipment off the back of a truck. And that is the first business. It was phone call sales, right off the truck into somebody's playground. Very challenging, especially during that time of the recession. Gas prices, of course, diesel went from like 99 cents to $5. And, all of a sudden it was like, what am I doing here? How am I going to make this work? And, so that was the first business. We would drive for hundreds of miles just to pick up a phone book and start all over.
So you just stocked a trailer full of stuff and you went and sold it. I mean, you sold it and installed it right then?
Back then, yeah.
Wow. Okay. Like door-to-door playground selling.
Yes.
Almost.
It's as bad as it sounds.
Hey, it works.
It worked, and it still does work. Actually, we've got a couple of distributors down in that area that are still selling that stuff, and it gets them into a lot of doors. It's one of those skills. It's not the complete skill set, but it is definitely a skill to be able to walk in and talk to somebody and be able to sell them to their face on something they didn't know they wanted and they didn't know they needed. It's a skill.
Yeah, definitely doing door-to-door sales and stuff. Even commercial or residential, that's definitely a skill set. All right, so you started doing the kind of door-to-door type thing locally, and then you just did. I'm assuming you did a bunch more, started doing more sales, and then you eventually switched the model to like sell direct and go and install it.
Yeah, so I switched that up probably within maybe 2 or 3 months. I was just phone book after phone book after phone book. I was like looking for people. I was looking for SDRs to make calls. I was doing anything I could to get out of that because there just wasn't enough. It was limited by myself, basically. My dad he's a great in-person salesperson. He didn't love to make the phone calls. So I was immediately looking for other places. And the internet was, really new for that business, and nobody was wanting to sell it. And everybody thought it was crazy to be able to sell it. Like how can you sell a $50,000 or $100 or $500 or even a $500 playground online? Nobody's going to buy that. And it on my first website, it was a little bit of what I was living at the time. It was, I think it was 19th State of Play was the name of it. 19th State being Indiana was the 19th state in the Union. I love history. But I was immediately like, well, I can't do that. That's, that's going to limit me to Indiana people. I don't want people in Ohio to hate an Indiana business. No. You got to have something more general. State of Play at the time was a movie coming out with Brad Pitt. It was a popular book, I think, and stateofplay.com was owned by a photographer in the UK. So we went with AAA State of Play. Had a nice ring to it and took off. I was getting calls immediately. One of the first calls I got was a lady in San Francisco. She wanted a geodome climber from some manufacturer out in Missouri. So we immediately started drop shipping from about 20 different factories overnight. But within a month or two, that other distributor I said that went out of business, he started burning everybody, and everybody changed their credit terms really quick. So that it affected me over the next, 12 months, just because, you can only do so much with limited dollars. It's about moving money. And our average sales cycle back then was probably a lot less than it is now. Right now, it's probably 90 days. Back then, it was probably more like 35 to 40, but then you have another 30 to 40 of bill cycle. So maybe less, but even then it still limited my ability to be able to sell.
Gotcha. So initially you were reselling other people's equipment. You weren't building none of that stuff. You were just reselling. Did you install them then, or were you just selling them online?
So, initially we were doing the door to door, we were installing, and then we were doing online. And within, I'd say immediately we were out on the road. We'd sell a structure in Minnesota and we'd schedule the install and we'd go do it. And I'd go out there with one or two guys and we'd drive to Minnesota, and a day later we'd drive to Phoenix, and a day later we'd drive to Florida, and a day later we'd drive to wherever, and hundreds of thousands of miles later that year, I did that for maybe 2 years. That was about 2 years of my life. And I could not keep that lifestyle up. That's a lot of travel, and nowadays, with the amount of jobs there are, our installers aren't traveling quite that bad, but some of them still do. But they like it. For myself, I don't love the road life that much. I like regional home life.
Yeah. Yeah. You couldn't pay me enough to do that, to live on the road. Okay. All right. So I wanted to kind of get a background building this up. You were building your company as this is going on over the years. You're getting, had the website, you started selling online, you're doing, installs as well. And then at some point you really kind of scaled it up, right?
Yeah. So we started out in an extra bedroom in my parents' house in regards to the website stuff. Immediately hired one of my uncles. He had lost his job right before the recession because they saw it coming and they fired all of their advertising crew. So he actually just retired from us last year. He'd been with us for 19 years. So very unusual. He and I both thought it would be probably a 6 to 8 week ordeal. And he was there from, bedroom. He would wake me up in the morning, sit me down and talk about the orders of the day. Terrible times in my life, but I remember there was so much fun back then, And then we built out an office downstairs, and that was also its own interesting dialogue, hiring people off of Craigslist and everything else back then, and they would come to a house to interview in a basement. Sounded like a scene out of Criminal Minds, And a few of those people are still at the business, 16, 17 years later. And they still tell that story of, their friend sitting in the car waiting because they were interviewing at a playground company in a basement.
Come in and save them real quick.
I know. So, we've got a lot of stories like that. And then we bought some property in Greenfield, built a warehouse, kept scaling, just scaling. I'd had a couple of meetings with some overseas manufacturers, and I knew there was a lot of opportunity to be my own brand. All these brands we had done business with, they're all okay, but they're all crap in their own way. They all don't do that. They're all owned by, at this point, they're all owned by 3 or 4 companies. And the amount of care that they gave back then was even less than they do now. So it was one of those things where I knew I only needed about an inch and I would be better than them. So that wasn't a high bar. Now I need to do more than an inch, but it wasn't a high bar until you realize how much goes into it.
Hey, just a quick time out from the show. If you're a frustrated contractor who's dealing with low profit margins, stuck working on the tools every day, or doing free estimates for people who are never going to hire you in the first place, I invite you to my private contractor community, the Profit Club, where contractors just like you are adding 2 to 3 times more profit each year without producing any more jobs, and finally getting completely off the tools to never do another free estimate again. So if you're ready to increase your profits, stop doing free estimates, and get off the tools, then all you have to do is click the link in the show notes to learn more about the Profit Club and see how it can easily 2 to 3 times the cash in your pocket, give you a proven sales process that will convert more jobs with ease and get you off the tools once and for all. And the best part is you can do all of this without having to produce more jobs than you currently are. Click the link to learn more. Now let's get back to the show.
And then you're like, well, shoot, there is a lot more that goes into all this. You got ERPs and people, and you start scaling over 50 people. All of a sudden, it's a headache. We would cook lunch for every single employee until we probably hit 55, 60 people. I hired a chef, a Greek chef, to come in and cook potatoes and chicken every day. And then we'd have, something different on Fridays. But yeah, I mean, we kept growing. And during that time, we probably hit a little bit of a wall there for a minute. We had a little bit of a betrayal. It was during that first warehouse, we had scaled a lot. We had, grown, and I had given a lot of, at the time I overvalued character signals for, controls. And I would I didn't have the checks and balances that I needed as an organization. I had probably 15 to 16 direct reports, which anybody would tell you that's insane. And it's because I was a control freak, and I didn't think that I could trust certain people. I could trust other people. Got me into a lot of trouble. And I had this one incident. We were somewhere around 20, somewhere around there in revenue. And I had a entire business unit. So we had a couple of different business units back then. I had a business unit. He was creating distributors out of his pocket, that were actually him or his family. And then he was, using those to funnel leads to resell and then get commissions on them from the company and then profit from his distributorships. So he was taking leads away from distributors, pushing them over into his company. And he did all of this under a variety of guises. He recorded thousands of hours of phone calls with every department of the company. So he would talk to maybe accounting, and he would say something like, hey, I got to push this distributor through, and it would be a real one, because if they don't, we're going to lose this order. And they'd say, well, okay, wouldn't Nick want to do it? Yeah, of course I would want to do it. I don't want to lose an order.
Yeah.
And then a week later, he would do that for one of his companies. So he had, the claim in his head, and, during all these proceedings for the next 3 years after he was caught, until we finally, settled all of it, that, he was like building a statement of defense the entire time with anybody. Anybody he was talking to was a statement like, oh, well, we gave him these parts for free, so I'm going to do it here. And, he had multiple people, unfortunately, within the organization kind of in on this. It all came to a head, and man, it was a very costly nightmare. Just the legal expenses probably cost me over $1 million.
Wow.
It was just, I'd never had to keep on file or record recordings. I had no idea I was being recorded, right? And all of my other staff was being recorded. It kind of gave me this weird thing for a while. I was like, somebody would put a phone on a desk, and I'm like, what am I being set up for? What are you going to try and have me do here? Meanwhile, we're a playground company, I felt like it was so ridiculous.
So, okay. So you said he set up his own distributor. I mean, was he drop shipping from the same people that you were buying from, or how was he selling?
Well, so we were a manufacturer at this point. Okay. So he was creating, so it would be as though he created a distributorship out of his wife's name, for example, or his brother's name, but he didn't even use his brother's name. He used John Doe.
Yeah.
And then he was actually the business owner of that unit in, let's say, another state, Pennsylvania.
Right.
So then instead of giving those leads to the distributor in Pennsylvania, which that's what we do, we give all of our leads out to distributors, he would take all those for himself, resell that product, make the commission internally at MVB, and then also he would make the end profit at that other company.
Yeah.
And his argument there was then that since finance allowed him to do it for this distributor over here. Why not over here?
Yeah.
Very, very schemy. Very schemy.
Yeah.
Took a lot more to think about it and execute it if he had just applied himself to the business focused.
Yeah.
Like he could have made a lot more money.
Is that, but I'm just curious now. I mean, was anything he did technically illegal?
Yes. When you're physically recording people in certain states, like Illinois, California, et cetera, and we had people in those states, absolutely. When he is intentionally, writing down names of distributors that are false and then wire fraud on that, there's all sorts of.
I got you.
And then he, at the end of it, there was different things that was, he put his computer in a microwave, put all his phones in a microwave. You're destroying company, you're trying to get rid of a paper trail at that point.
I got you.
You could argue absolutely that there would be, but I mean, there's no prosecutor that wants that kind of case though, because that's not pretty, right? They don't want anything to do with that. At the end of the day, that all ends up being civil.
Yeah. So did you have to sue him then?
Yes, it was a long trial. It was a long, drawn out thing.
Yeah. But I mean, going back and looking at it though, what could you have done to prevent that from happening?
I think for me, as a younger person, I wasn't really bought in on core values. And sometimes when I see them, like at companies, I think, God, that's such bullshit. Or excuse me, but that's such bull, right? Like, I don't believe it sometimes. Like I look at some NFL team or some big company, and you're like, there's no way.
Yeah.
Get 3 employees to name their core values. They don't know them. And, the more I bought into that and living those out quasi-religiously, and I go to church every week. So I hate saying that, but you have to really believe it to the core. Otherwise it doesn't work. And I didn't at the time. I didn't think about it. And once that happened, I kind of had to do some soul searching. It hit my ego. My ego was broken, and I didn't want to talk about it because it was a problem one way or the other. And it was my fault. Those are 2 things I don't like. Yeah. I think the biggest thing that I did to structurally I could have done is I could have been more prepared as a company to scale. And I could have said, this is what we believe in. This is who we are. Like right now, you could ask me, who are my customers? Why do I do this? And I know exactly why I do this, right? Like I build a playground so I can give a kid a place to take risks, right? Calculated risks, and it's a safe spot with guardrails that they can take risks, right? I do this for distributors, or I do this for the end users, the playground owners, so they can. That's where community begins. It's where you meet your neighbors. It's where that spark of initial community begins. It's where kids learn each other's names. That's why I do this. And the last reason is my people and our distributors, so I can give them some better way of life. They can, whatever that means to them, right? And so those are the whys. Back then, I had no idea. I thought I was doing this to sell playgrounds and make money, and and that is the point to a point. We're all in this to make money. We're all to a small degree, and sometimes if that becomes the driving factor, I think I got a little lost in it, and so I could have reset myself a little bit better.
So do you think it was just a hiring decision? Like it was back then you weren't hiring for culture, like you were just hiring anybody that could do the job in order to scale. I mean, do you
100%.
If you had your core values that you were really focusing on, that person wouldn't have fit into your company?
Yeah. I mean, I think that, once we set up that company with core values, and then once you implement a lot of other structural changes related to that, whether it's we have our daily huddles or your team tacticals, your department tacticals, it's a lot harder to escape being that type of person in that type of environment. I mean, I think there's always a chance to have a bad hire, right? And
sure.
As a small company, I couldn't have an HR department, right? But now I have an HR department. It's a great group of people, and they still have bad hires. Stuff happens. But those people are usually spotted out within the first 30 to 40 days, and then they're either decide to get on board or they're gone. And I want people here for a long time. I mean, I had, like I said earlier, I have had people here, a lot of people past 10 years, and I continue to have a lot of people past 10 years. But we've got people, a lot of warehouse workers, and unfortunately, sometimes that goes with not a lot of time.
Yeah. Yeah. So you had that situation happen, and then, you recovered from it. Have you had other situations like that, or was that kind of like the awakening moment for you?
That was probably the big awakening for me. I mean, we end up having a lot of, I think the bad hires that we go under, one bad hire, they say, like, there's a lot of people that'll put a dollar amount to it, right? It's three times their annual salary is what it costs you, I think. Right. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. But I think there's, like, as we've scaled and I've needed real directors with real backbone and real, like, experience, I'm a huge believer in everybody can grow up and become anything they want to be. Like, I'm not the huge believer in college. I don't think that it's the perfect for any scenario. I think, doctor, if you're operating on my body, I want you to be certified. Yep. But if you're selling my playgrounds, I don't need you to have a degree. If you're in charge of my operations, but I do need you to keep educating yourself and continuously improve. I need you to figure out that one thing that you're not great at today and be better at it tomorrow and the day after and the day after. And I had a lot of people who just weren't right for the role. And I think that probably cost me more than anything over the years, was just not having that courage to just say goodbye to some people that helped me scale quick enough. And it definitely cost me a lot of money over the last probably 5 to 8 years.
There was, I've been reading some books on employment and stuff. I'm reading one right now. It's called Never Lose an Employee Again. I don't know if you've read that or not. It's a really,
I think so.
But there was one thing that stuck out, and I don't remember if it was that book or another one, but it said, sometimes you have the right people in the wrong role. And
Joey Coleman. Yeah.
Is that okay? Yeah.
Yeah. I met Joey at a few events. He's a very terrific speaker.
What book was that though? Was that
Never Lose an Employee Again?
Okay. I'm in the middle of it. So it's some of that gets kind of convoluted. Yeah. Sometimes you have the right people in the wrong role or the wrong people in the right role. There's a lot of these combinations. And I'm assuming you had to go through and kind of figure that part out.
Yeah. There are some interesting character assessment softwares out there, Culture Index and others, where they do a really interesting job. It's a survey. Every employee takes it. It kind of just helps you align with their stress levels, assuming that they answer it appropriately, and how they're fitting into their role and where they feel like it kind of helps you align. Is your vision match what they're doing? And does their daily flow match what you think it should be? We use it as a gauge of employee health. Initially, we do use it to try and fit that person into a role. If they're an operator, an architect, there's a variety of different character placements in which they kind of qualify people at. And based on that, we assume this person's going to have a hard time making a decision. Are we going to accept that in this role or not? Is this the kind of team that we want to build? And it helps us kind of better understand. It's not the end all be all,
sure,
but it definitely helps you give a good idea of these pieces work really good with these pieces. Can we explode with this group of people or will it implode?
Yeah. Yeah. Especially at scale. If you only have 4 employees, you're not really worried about, all these different things that you're talking about. But definitely as you scale, that's becomes crucial. If there was one piece of advice you could give to the contractor listening, maybe a smaller guy who's, not doesn't have 20, 50 employees, but what would be one piece of advice you can give them in terms of hiring that would you think would be beneficial?
In terms of hiring, I think that in that initial thing, I think going with your gut, I know it sucks long term, but man, but also you have to go with your gut on both ways. That's the thing, hiring and firing. And if you're not willing to do that, then, you need to try and find somebody else to do both, because you've got to be able to fire. Yeah. And that's where a lot of guys get in trouble. And that's where I got in trouble in the beginning was you hire your friends, your family, people closest to you. And it's hard to fire those people because that ruins Christmas. I wasn't invited to Christmas for like 7 years. So,
Yeah.
I mean, but that's just a choice I made, but they were bad employees. I couldn't have them around anymore. Now, did they want to take responsibility? No. But my responsibility is to the others and myself, not just to them. So I think that's my biggest thing is, before you hire anybody, think over it again. There's somebody else out there with that skill set that can do it. Somebody else.
There's you can go super deep into that. A lot of contractors and service people are like, no one can do it as good as me. I'm like, that's bull crap. There's hundreds and thousands of people that could probably do it better than you, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're not the only one that can do that. And so you have that mentality. But I think a lot of guys, especially starting out and young in their business, it's like, I need a installer, I need a salesman, and somebody applies like, oh, good. And so it's like, you're filling positions that you need instead of actually looking for, like you're saying, that culture fit. How does this impact the business long term? And so the gut feeling, sometimes you have a gut feeling about, man, maybe this person may not work out, but I need to fill this installation position, and they're willing to fill it. Like, I'll just look past that gut to fill that position.
Yeah. One way that I looked at it earlier on was, so Dan Martell, he's an author. He wrote, I think it's Buying Back Your Time.
Buy back your time.
And, yeah. And he's got that interesting philosophy, if you can hire it out, and, I think it's a good exercise to do, if nothing else, is looking at what you do on a daily basis and say, is this worth my annual salary to be able to do this? Or if I hired this off and spent $50,000 to hire this off, and I never had to do this again, and this person did this, is it worth it? And if it is, it's probably worth it, because you can probably build out an entire job around that. And if that's the case, how much can you do before, and does it need to be perfect? Because if it needs to be perfect, well, it's not worth $50,000.
Right.
And you shouldn't be doing it anyways. You should really be thinking about, why are you doing this, and why does it have to be you? Why can't anybody else do this? And it took me a long time to say, okay, I don't have to do this. I'm going to let go a little bit. I'm just going to ease up. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm a big believer in progress over process, or, over perfection.
I don't know if you listen to Greg Groeschel or not, but he's got the Gitmo. Have you ever heard that term?
No, I have not.
Greg Groeschel, he's a pastor. He's a well-known pastor. Anyways, he's got a term. It's called Gitmo. It's good enough to move on, right? Is it good enough to move on? We're past the point of diminishing returns. We don't need to spend another hour, day, whatever, week trying to make it perfect. So I use that term a lot of times if I get stuck in this. No, it's got to be perfect. It's like, hold up, this doesn't have to be that good. Let's move on.
I like that. That's good.
Good stuff. Well, Nicholas, we're getting short on time. I always like to ask all my guests, what's a book that you're reading or one that you would recommend?
Book I recommend. I'm reading 2 books right now. One is a torrential, way too long. It's the biography of Walt Disney. I don't know. Okay. It's a long one. It's the other one is Software as a Science. It's got, I think, 4 co-authors. So we're doing that new software book, and that's just helping me more kind of understand the subscriptions and stuff like that. One of the authors is Dan Martell. It's kind of why I thought of him recently, just because he was on my mind from that. But yeah.
That's what I was going to ask you. I thought Dan Martell was part of that book, Software as a Science. That's good. Awesome. Well, Nicholas, what's if somebody wanted to reach out, if they want to, maybe get on your distribution list, or if you do installs, or like, how would someone reach out to learn more about your business and if they could work with you?
Absolutely. They can always find me on LinkedIn. It's Nicolas Breedlove, Nicolas Breedlove on LinkedIn, and you'll find me, and just message me there, and a team member will get it to me. But I'm pretty reactive when it comes to requests like that. So we got a good team behind me, fortunately. Otherwise, wouldn't be able to do much.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you being on here, taking time from your busy businesses you got going on, lots of stuff going on. Thanks again for being on the show.
I appreciate you, man.
All right. Well, guys, that's the end of the show. Thanks for hanging out with us. You know where to find us on the social media. We'll put Nicholas's information in the show notes as well if you want to reach out to him. And appreciate you hanging out with us. Remember, until next time, profit's not a dirty word.